Hello all, Xyceres here. We're doing another base tour. This will be the first base that I have mastered on the Dreadshore patch. This is Iron Ridge. It started as a 4500, which is why it's up to 60.25 now. It is a brutal base. Was large, obviously, because it had 4500. It had 56 raid attempts. One of these was from social. If you want to check that out, it was actually from the Borkier Games YouTube channel. They did a stream on the 1st of July, morning of the 1st of July, and they ran through an earlier version of this base. It was around level 7, so it's not too far off the final product. We ended up getting 255 kills for 4.5 kill ratio, 83 accolades for roughly 1.5 accolade ratio, with the highest being fun at 26. In second place is brutal and artistic, both at 19, and 14 for genius, which you'll see why they're fairly evenly spaced out once we get into the actual map, which I think we'll go straight into the gameplay here. Yeah, so I went for the speedrun path this time, because I thought it was the most interesting. So anyway, what we have here is Iron Ridge. We have a fairly long path that is not actually that useful for the raider, because it's not closed off at all. It's all done through this pattern here, which is designed because I was trying to make it look like there were chains connecting these 4 pillars, which is part of why I get so many artistics. So you've got, yeah, chain linking up here. You've got these DPD metal parts are being used to represent nails that are stuck into the ground. So like this one here is nailed down, and it goes through to the bottom here where it's actually connected into the wall. Similar thing over here with this lot here. Let's quickly just go over the full Harvey path. It actually goes in here, goes through this center bit near the tomb, comes back down with another chain link thing here. Then it gets pulled up to the top of one of the spires that I have, because I have 4 spires in the 4 corners of the map, just made out of bedrock, which was part of why I went for this. Then it goes around the spires, past the giant fire-breathing snake, and back down into here where it gets into the nest of the bird here, with the egg that has another tomb in it, the last tomb being just over there near this snake. I just had like a floating gen mat just in the middle of nowhere, just slightly off from one of the spires, so I had to do something for that, because if I just left it completely exposed, it would be way too obvious where it is. And part of the reason this base gets so many kills is because you can't immediately find where that is, and if you try to follow the path, you go through basically everything, which can actually be quite dangerous, despite being open air, because a lot of traps don't work when they're open air. So to make up for that, we've done let's go over to the guard so we can actually show the guard counts. I've got 3 enforcers, a single ravager, 5 warmongers, 3 cannonbacks, and 8 hornets. So quite a few warmongers, but mostly hornets, and just like a few of everything else. The one ravager, I pretty much already was pretty happy with where the guards were all placed before the actual Dreadshore patch dropped, because I made this the night before while I was waiting for the patch, and it didn't come out at any reasonable time for me in Australia. It came out like 2 AM the day after. So there's just the one Ravager was the only... I only have 1 guard limit left, so I put it here. I actually don't think there's too many good spots for Ravagers around here. Like, maybe that Warmonger down there could be a Ravager. But, in general, I don't think that would be super good on this map because of the spread that their shots have. Anyway, yeah, so we've got chains and spikes, they go around all the map. I had originally intended to have, like, one of these spires, like, piercing something, like having, like, a Cyclops type thing, because the idea being I wanted these to be monsters that are escaping from the ground, and these are the spikes that were previously holding them down, but the chains are starting to, like, snap and decay and break. So, like, that's why you don't have the you have like this gap here where there's no chain, despite the fact that it looks like that chain should be connected to that chain and stuff like that. Um, but when I was trying to create the humanoid one, I just couldn't get it to really work, so I just opted to go for more traps. I think that's better in the long run. So anyway, yeah, so most people, when playing this, they see Harvey's going up this, so they start following this, thinking that it leads to something. And they end up in this situation here, where you're in the middle of the map. Now, that would be relatively safe, in general, because there's not that many traps that can threaten a lot of area like that. But, obviously Plasma Sentinels can, and I've put 9 of them in the center here, and 2 in the eyes. And this pattern here is just so to separate them so they all have good sight lines. Because Plasma Sentinels have weird sight lines, like if I'm here, that bottom face might be able to see me, maybe, but if I'm a bit further down, it definitely can't, and there's all these shenanigans. So, this here kills a lot of people. Like, I legitimately think I could build a full wall of Plasma Sentinels and it would be less dangerous than these 9 here. And to protect this a little bit, I've put some bolt traps just underneath, and I think there's a couple that are kind of like off to the side as well. So that if you're up here trying to get to it, you're likely to trigger like that one, and I think this one is relatively close. No, this one's more about pointing at this. I think there's one in here that goes right over the top. Yeah, so there's a bunch of things like that where I'm trying to protect these using bolt traps, so if you do shoot them and try and go up for it, you'll end up often getting hit. There is safe ways to deal with it, and you also don't need to deal with it if you don't want to. I did see quite a few people with 1 minute times going up and just going straight to this section, grabbing this and getting out, similar to what I did in the test play. It's part of the reason I did it that way. Just a lot of people noticed that particular route. Most of these hornets, they'll start somewhere fairly safe, like fairly high up, that you just wouldn't normally go to. Say here is a good example. This one's up here. There's one down here if I remember right. Yeah, just below here. And they'll just like do a loop around whatever they're on. So around the spires, around the things, around the spires, around the snake, around the bird. It is basically impossible to go through this map without aggroing at least a couple of them. And they just add more pressure to the player who has to try and deal with everything all at once. And there's a lot all over the place. There's also, on the ground, there's a few traps pointed just straight up. Because I'm expecting the player to be in the air, not necessarily on any of the routes that I've actually set up for them. Well, set up for Harvey mostly, but... and that's kind of why you got things like this... this... that one there's for if someone does actually take the path, but Similar, this one here is for if someone takes the path, because it actually just throws bombs down this way. So if they miss it and run forward, they can die. And they might get additional pressure from that one if they missed it as they went past, because I believe it has overshot. Almost all of these have overshot, so that they can reach quite far. And this one here, this one will pretty much always get triggered. You can technically go here and hug this, but because you're under pressure from these 3 guards here and the one down here, you normally won't hug this. You normally don't have the time for it, which means that bomb goes off, and then that bomb fills the nest. Sometimes it backfires, generally not. I think these are the only 2 hollow cubes on the map. Let's just double check that quickly. 2 used, yeah. This one's the second wave. It's supposed to stop this guy who's pathed into it from running down there before the gen mat is picked up. And this one here is just to hide this guy, because he actually goes into here and then across. And because it's so open, it's really easy to spot him, and then he gets killed quite often without ever actually getting full effect from him. He still gets killed pretty often, like people accidentally trigger this and just murder him. Especially if they fight this one here, which normally doesn't happen. He normally sees you as you're coming from like this direction and starts chasing after you. Because it's rare for someone to be on this side, which is also why there's only like 1 bolt trap on this side, whereas a lot of people end up on this side, so I've got like 1, 2, 3 bolt traps all just pointed off into the middle of nowhere, because a surprising number of people actually get caught by that. This is a fairly late edition, so there's not that many skulls, but yeah, it's done a lot more than I would have expected. You also notice that there's a bunch of bolt traps down here. One of the common ways people climb this is to go up here and try climbing this way. For reference, these are second wave ones, because they're supposed to be for players that jump out. If they don't grapple, these things have hunter on them. They'll fire because you went through their path as they went down, and they can kill the player. I don't actually think they've gotten anyone, which is sad, but it's come close a couple times, so I still think they're worth it. There's not a lot of like really good spots you can put traps. You kind of have to, in an open air one like this, each individual trap kind of has to be that off chance that you might get them. The incinerator up here, I think this is the only incinerator left at the moment. Yeah, it's just so that the snake breathes fire. I like the idea. So, I put it in. It was originally going to be a dragon, but I couldn't be bothered putting in the extra blocks to make it look a little bit more dragon-like, and I think the fire-breathing snake still works pretty well as something escaping from the pit here. The bird kind of looks like a canary, unfortunately, which is not really what I was going for, but at least there's a little bit of a distinction because it's yellow and white with the red claws. So it's not the end of the world, but hey, that is it. I think that's everything. Oh, some of these guards have Bloodlust. I think that one has Bloodlust. I think you down here might have Bloodlust. Yep. You maybe... Nope. There's a lot of investment in mods on each of these. Oh, not you either. A lot of investment in mods on each of these guards and on all these traps, because once again there's not a lot of good spots for traps or guards. Well, there's plenty of good spots for guards because hornets can fly around, but because I'm somewhat limited in useful spots for traps. I spent a lot of the capacity on just making sure when I did have a useful spot that they did get fully upgraded, although I think I didn't upgrade these, I only gave them Plasma Cloud, whereas they could really use the extra sight range so that they cover more area, though if we click on, say, this middle one, it's got a pretty good area already. Anyway, that's it for Iron Ridge. It'll be on social for the foreseeable future. If it's not on social, it'll be listed in the description here. But, yeah, until next time, which will be on the weekend when I'm going to be doing a Vault Lancer guide.